Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Hot 100 show. And you know who's here? Yours truly, Ches Severs and Brent Eads. Brent, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Great. How's the weather out in California? Perfect.
It's overcast right now.
Okay.
It's a miserable 72 degrees and cloudy. What's that?
Well, actually, we're having a gorgeous day here in Austin, Texas. You know, something that I always get, everyone thinks that I'm in California or I live there. I feel like that's your fault.
Well, I'm not complaining. Hey, it's a good place to be. Softball's kind of good here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But just so everybody knows, I live in Austin, Texas, and we film this in Austin, Texas. So we are here. Last week we had a great show talking Hot 100 candidates, and we're talking Hot 100 again today. But let's talk a little bit about the 2016 Freshman of the Year finalists. We have quite a few Hot 100 players in that class. Number 4, Maggie Ballant. Brent, what are your thoughts on Maggie?
She's been. You wonder when a pitcher comes in if she's going to catch on fire and then get figured out. But Maggie, the Ducks started off 36-0, and then they hit a couple road bumps, but they're coming back, and they swept Florida State. By the way, what did the three of us last week predicted that the Ducks would win that series?
Yeah. Okay. Rub it in.
Well, I did say they'd take 2 or 3 at home, but no, I mean, that was an impressive series for Oregon, and they're in the top 3 again. And Maggie she's staying consistent. So I think, if anything, she's got to be the top pitcher in the freshman class. The 11 freshmen of the year, you got Rachel Garcia, who is a redshirt freshman, I believe. But to come in like Maggie did, straight off the club scene and do what she's doing, I'm still very impressed.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with how she's handled herself with some of the top-ranked teams in the nation, and she's got complete poise and a competitiveness in the circle that is just so fun to watch. And that Ducks team is very hot right now. And Brent, you were dead on with that one, and I was dead wrong.
I would say you're dead wrong. I mean, Florida State was hot.
Florida State's going to bounce back. They're going to bounce back. That's my thought right now. Yeah. They opened up the ACC tournament looking pretty good. So hopefully they've gotten enough rest and can climb back up to the top. But both teams, great weekend of softball for both the Ducks and Florida State. But let's continue. Oh, just a reminder, we have a poll on Facebook for Freshman of the Year finalists. So let us know your thoughts. So moving on down the line, number 10, Alyssa Barrera with the Utah Utes, having a stellar year. They took a tough loss yesterday, but how do you think Alyssa Barrera is going to end up and the Utah Utes?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everyone knows Hannah Flippen, and she's all world. But Alyssa came in, and I remember we watched her at Mary Nutter, and I was just impressed with everything she did on the field and hitting. And going back to what Tony Rico said when he coached her, she just has a professional attitude. She's just very workmanlike in how she approaches what she does, and she's just effective. And she's one of those that'll have a quiet 3-for-4 game and just does the small things to help her team win. So I've been a big Alyssa Barrera fan after I started watching her last year when she helped the Firecrackers win a national championship.
Yeah, very fun to watch. And one other standout freshman who was number 43 on our list, Jessie Harper, is just tearing it up at Arizona. Brent, you were right there at PGF Nationals when she pretty much took off.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, 6 home runs that week, and she helped the Choppers, SoCal Choppers, finish third. And that was when they were missing Taylor Dawkins. Remember the whole thing where she got ill with, the cancer scare in Colorado and missed. But Jessie just carried that team on her back, and she was super hot. In fact, we're involved with the Louisville Slugger Hit Club, and it's 10 And we made an exception in the second year to add Jessie just because she just blew everybody away. I mean, everything she did was an extra base hit. And we're not talking against, the little sisters of the poor. This was against the best competition, best pitchers in the country at her age group. And she's come in, what did she have, like 19 home runs and 52 RBI. And, she's just sparked, as Deja Mullapola has, the Arizona. So I'm very happy with her. And she continues to light it up. Like I said, had a multi-home run game this past week.
Yeah, I just had an epiphany right now, Brent. Almost every freshman that we're talking about is in the Pac-12. That is just crazy. And to see where those Pac-12 teams are right now in terms of ranking, we can see how much of an impact this freshman class is making on a national level.
Yeah, and it's a great point because everyone has conceded that the last couple of years it's been the SEC. The SEC has stepped forward. But if you look at when you look at the rankings, Oregon's strong, UCLA and Arizona, obviously we just talked about, Washington with Sis Bates. There's another one that she was the MVP at the Louisville Slugger Hit Club last year. And Sis Bates was on that same firecracker team with Alyssa. Just a prolific hitter, just very skilled and business-like in her approach. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's going to, with a lot of young talent and good pitching coming in, Maggie, we just talked about her. Let's see where the Pac-12 goes the next couple of years because the teams are getting stronger. But at the same time, you've got these teams in the South that are just not starting, but continuing to do well, like Florida and Florida State, and Tennessee is there. And it's just on and on. So that's what I love. Now we're getting that parity in softball and almost the duality. I mean, when you get rivalries like the Yankees and the Red Sox, and so now in college softball, we're seeing the Pac-12 starting to make a resurgence, and the SEC is still strong, and you're seeing the Big Ten. How about Minnesota? Go Gophers. So I'm excited to see that there's new teams, new talent, yet some of the old guards starting to come back and be very strong, a la the UCLAs and Arizonas, like you just said, in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I've noticed that there are a few names on here that came from the Louisville Slugger Hit Club. Could you give us a little bit of input on what the Louisville Slugger Hit Club is and when it happens? Yeah,
great question. This will be the third year, and what it is, it's for the top hitters in the country. 10 is the number. Last year we made an exception because of Harper doing so well. And it takes place, I want to say it's July 29th, 30th, and 31st, right between the two PGF weekends. And so if you like softball at the highest level, especially club, on that Friday, PGF has their 18, 12, and 10 national championship games. And right after the 18 game is the PGF All-American game. And the next day, the 10 players, the 10 top hitters will come out and they'll be there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and they get to do great things, hitting related things, but they get to talk to people like Sue Inquist and just meet each other. And so last year, one of the highlights was we had Amanda Lawrence and, I'm blanking out.
Shay Knighton.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I want to say her sister. They came down and there was a bonfire at the beach and they talked what it was like to be a freshman and going through the whole, the pressure of being a college freshman at that high level, including social media. So it's an opportunity. It's an honor for the 10 hitters. We'll be announcing those probably in the next month. And like you mentioned, we had Sis Harper, Jess Bates, and, going back to the first year, we had some great players like Amanda Lawrence and many others. So it's a good opportunity for us to see these girls up close and for them to have fun, do stuff like go to Disneyland and just be honored for their success that they've had so far.
Yeah, I believe the first year Jessica Mendoza was part of the first Louisville Slugger Hit Club, and then the following year was it Amanda Freed also who was involved, and I'm sure with the caliber of this whole event, we should see another, star softball player come out of the woods.
Yeah, they're in talks with one that let's just say she was the National Player of the Year the last couple of years. So it'll be fun that way. But, I want to throw out kudos to Jenny Ritter. Jenny Ritter oversees softball for Louisville Slugger, and this was her baby and brainchild. And if you don't know your history, Jenny led Michigan what was it? I want to say 2005.
Yep.
To the national championship when they beat UCLA, and that was the first team east of the Mississippi to win a College World Series. So Jenny is really the driving force behind this, and the great thing is you talk to these girls, and they make friendships that last for life. It's a bonding thing. For 3 days they're together, but they all are in the same boat. They know what it takes to be like that caliber player, and so for them to meet other players in their situation, it's great that they can meet on the field later, be it at a Mary Nutter or even a College World Series, and say, hey, remember way back on the Louisville Slugger Hit Club when we did this. So It's a lot of fun.
And this year, Brent, I haven't told you, but I will actually be there.
I'm sorry, Miss, what you?
I will actually be at the Louisville Slugger Hit Club.
You'll love it. You will have fun.
I'm sure. I know yes. Sue and Ken Reviza, and I'm sure it'll be a great experience. It's a lot crowded in the 3 days, but and it's just great to meet these girls, and they're so appreciative. And like we said, go to Disneyland or San Diego Zoo or do something fun, but at the same time, they get some high intensity softball education training, working with the best. And I love it. It's an honor, but it's also a chance for them to get some good knowledge, education, rub shoulders. You mentioned Ken Reviza. If you don't know who Ken Reviza is, he's a professor, but he's also like a mental edge guru. And he works with the Chicago Cubs. He's good friends with Coach Madden, the head coach of the Cubs, and a lot about positive reinforcement. He's worked with some of the Angels, like Trout and Pujols. And for him to talk to these girls for an hour and talk about approach to hitting mentally and dealing with failure and that kind of thing, it's just a great opportunity. So we kind of went off sidetrack with Louisville Slugger Hit Club, but just keep an eye on FloSoftball.com in the next month or so. You're going to find out who this year's crop will be, and I can promise you there's some great ones. Yeah, and just to add to that, Brent, so you can actually find some of Ken Reviza's video in our video section under technique. So if you want a taste of kind of like what he has to offer as far as the mental game, you won't be disappointed. Yeah. So just moving on to a couple of players that didn't get recognized in the Hot 100, but are absolutely tearing it up this year. We're talking about Jenna Cohn and Kendall Lindemann. Brent, what can you tell us about those two stars? Kendall Lindemann is an interesting one to me. We talked about her a little bit last week. Greg Dickel runs the Iowa Premier. And he kept saying, Brent, this girl is a beast. You just got to watch this girl. And the problem is in Iowa, as we said before, they play high school ball in the summer. So they miss a lot of the club season. And I had seen Kendall a year or two before, but when I saw her at the PGF All-American game, it was like, oh my gosh, who is this player? And to me, physically, I think she was the most impressive player I saw. And I want to say, I could be wrong here, that they won the Platinum Championship. But, I mean, they're number, what did we say before this, Ches, number 2 or 3? I think they're number 2 in the country, 3 in the country, Minnesota. Yeah, they're number 2 now. Yeah, and Lindemann, as a true freshman, leads the team with a .432 average, 19 home runs, and she's second with 68 RBI. That in the Big Ten, that's just amazing that team is, 51-3, I want to say. And, obviously they have a great pitcher in Sarah, but, I'm going to be preemptive and jump on the question I know you're going to ask. Who's the player of the year, freshman player of the year? You'd be hard-pressed to not pick her right now, or Maggie Ballant. I mean, if, you want to be political, I would say Maggie's the freshman pitcher of the year and Kendall's the freshman hitter of the year. But then I'll throw it to you. Jenna Cohn having a freaking good year at George Washington, so she's right there too. Yeah, former cruiser. Whoop whoop. Brent, I would have to agree with you. If I were to choose who's going to be the freshman of the year, I don't know. I would have to go with Kendall Lindemann. She has just been outstanding. Just given the stats, but also what she's done to help this Minnesota Gopher team up to its highest ranking ever as a program. I'm very, very excited to see how they do in the Big Ten tournament this weekend, and if they can go through the Big Ten tournament and actually win it. Because we know this, just historically, Michigan has dominated quite a bit over the last handful of years. So it'll be interesting to see that matchup, Groningen versus Betza, this weekend.
Yeah. And we saw already, and let's go back to this freshman of the year question. It's kind of like trying to pick the Heisman Trophy winner with a month left in the season. There's some games to be played. So let's see, Maggie Ballant could pitch 3 no-hitters in the next week, and then maybe Kendall goes over 40. But I'm interested to see. We've seen upsets already, and that's why it's fun. This is the fun time of year, getting the tournaments. With Florida losing to Ole Miss, and then Penn State beat Nebraska, I think was somewhat of a surprise in the Big Ten. So let's see how the Gophers do. I mean, it's one thing to run the table like they did 51-3 during the season, but now when it counts and the pressure in the conference, and then you start getting into the College World Series run. But let's see how these true freshmen, especially, how they step up and continue to play.
Yeah, Brent, so I don't know if you know about this, but there's a bet going on that if the Oregon Ducks make the World Series, I will get cornrows. I'm sticking to it. The Ducks, okay. Do you hear me?
They've had the talent the last couple of years, and I was one of my friends is Steve Savekis. Gwen Savekis is his dad, and he posted on Facebook that Coach White has to be the coach of the year in the conference. And I'm thinking, well, Utah did okay, but they've got to take it to that next level. They've lost. Was it UCLA knocked them out last year? I want to say. Yeah. They've got to get to the College World Series. They have the talent. Even losing a 3-time 3-year pitcher of the year like they had before. Now this is their year, I think. And with these young studettes, these great pitchers.
Studettes, I like that, Brent.
Yeah, and then you got like the Jenna Lillys and the Gwen Savekises, and their talent's just solid. So I think this is it. This Oregon's got to step up and say, you know what, we're taking it to the next level. We're going to be one of the Final 4, Final 8 standing.
And if anything, we've seen a glimpse of what the postseason is going to look like. It is literally anybody's game. We just saw the number 1 team go down in their own conference tournament, which, strategy-wise, isn't the worst thing. But I think it just reveals the talent that is being spread out across the country. And right now, timing is everything, and a little bit of luck goes a long way. But
Jenna Lilly had a good quote after they swept Florida State, and somebody interviewed her and said, "What does this mean?" And she goes, "Well, it gives us great confidence." And I think that's a lot. You wonder what the Florida mindset is. I would guess Tim Walton, and they've been there. They won 2 national championships recently. That probably makes their resolve even stronger. Like, okay, we're not perfect, guys. Sometimes a loss can be great for a coach, as you know, Ches, having been a coach, because it gives you something to work on or motivate, or you're not going to just think you can roll out the ball and win. So it'll be interesting to see how Florida responds. They've got a lot of good young talent. Will they have a little crisis in confidence, or is this going to just make them bite the lips a little more and go out there and just be a little ticked off that they got embarrassed? You'd have to say they got embarrassed when they're the number 1 team, like they did earlier this year when they lost. Who was it? The Maryland, I think, right? Who had been winless at the time. So Florida's an interesting one, and that's what makes this fun. Is how's Oregon going to do? How's Minnesota going to do? How's Florida State going to do?
Well, I can tell you this: it's anybody's game. When it comes to the tournament, it's my favorite time of the year, but it's going to be anybody's game. So I'm so excited to see the next few weeks of college softball, and not even just at the Division I level, but we have the JUCO championship coming up next week, and then followed by the Division II championship. So much great softball packed in 1 month. But we're going to move on to the 2021 Hot 100. Brent, what kind of feedback have you received in this first week of rankings? A
lot of positive. As you can imagine, if someone makes a list, I'm their favorite person we are their favorite person in the world, and we're in their will. If they don't make the list right now, it's where you get a lot of the late to the party coaches coming in like, oh my gosh, I forgot to nominate a player, or that's where it gets stressful for us, is because coaches are coming in saying, I didn't give you these 3 players, did I? And I'm like, no, you didn't. So it's one of those where the cow's out of the barn. The Hot 100 is pretty well locked down, but the feedback's been very good. And as we talked about last week, this is the most response we've ever had from any class. And we started 2014 through 2020, and now it's a 21 class. But it's a solid class, deep class. I mean, we're going to go through 500 deep in this class, which is amazing when you're considering they're 8th graders. But the theme I'm seeing, if you look at the first 50, we'll unveil the final 10 today. Very strong pitching class. I mean, even 100 through 51, you see some pitchers like Lydia Spalding from Ohio. She committed to Penn State, or the Ohio Outlaws. She's from Pennsylvania. You have Emma Lemley going to Virginia Tech. She's from Virginia and committed, I want to say, last September. And there's one other one that I wanted to talk. Oh, Corby Otis. Corby Otis is a big-time pitcher with the Bat Busters out here in California. She had Stanford after her and a lot of other schools, and she committed to Louisville. And these are 8th graders, and these are pitchers. So it's a very deep pitching class. That's what I'm seeing, and we're going to see even more as we get into the top 50. But another name to throw out, Lacey Ham. She's another Bat Buster, plays on Mark Campbell's team, had an incredible year last year. And one of the things we do to compile the list is we talk to club coaches all over and ask them not just about their players, but other players they've competed against. And probably the one that came up on everybody's list was Lacey Ham, in the sense that she's just a big game pitcher, and she's won at the highest level. So I'm really excited about the pitching in this class, the 2021 class. I think it's going to be one of the strongest pitching class or crops maybe in 3-4 years.
Yeah, I remember last year, PGF Nationals, 12U. Those were some heated games, and the talent coming from that level was just outstanding. And you remember that Bat Busters game where they got eliminated, went down to the wire with sudden impact. And that's another thing. We've seen tons of talent coming out of Texas. What can you tell us about some of the 2021 players coming out of Texas?
Well, you're seeing some programs. Traditionally, we've seen teams like Kevin Shelton's got Texas Glory, and they have their share in. And, you have the Texas Bombers. But you're seeing some young programs step up, like Troy Falderman's Texas Sudden Impact. We've had Sam Grader. She's an outstanding outfielder, catcher. Also, Erna Carlin, a pitcher. She's another pitcher I didn't mention, but she's a big-time pitcher, and I think they went all the way to the championship game. So in the Impact Gold Amada, they've got, I'm not going to reveal, but they've got, let's say, several, more than a couple in the Hot 100. So you're seeing Texas really step up. We talked about this last week. Georgia's very strong. But when it comes to the young teams, California, just because of the numbers, is always going to be there. You got TJ Hushmazada's team is very good. We're talking kind of mostly at the 14 and under. But here's what's crazy, Chaz. I'm seeing some players these are 8th graders, that they're playing this year, they're spot play or playing some significant amount of time on the 18 gold teams. They're 8th graders. They're playing with girls 5 years older. And some of it is because of these pitchers. I've done write-ups on 3 to 5 pitchers already that are throwing in the low 60s, and they're 13 years old. So these pitchers, and they're working, a lot of them are working with top talented pitchers and pitching coaches. So that's the thing that I'm seeing, is the pitching is becoming more developed. Kind of a side note, I was reading an article that was complaining about Major League Baseball, how the pitching is just horrible. And what I'm seeing, it's kind of the opposite in softball. I'm talking at the youth level, so it's kind of apples and oranges. But the young pitching is just really getting good. Now, will the hitters catch up? Probably. It'll even out. But I'm just really excited to see this 2021 class of pitchers. it's going to be very, very strong. But like you said, Texas has a ton of good pitching this year.
Brent, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think the hitters are superior than the pitching. That's just what I've seen.
So far, it's been the pitching. It's been impressive.
All right. We're going to have to see this summer.
Yeah.
And just so, I've been getting a ton of feedback about like our Hot 100 rankings, and just to let everybody know, after this 2021 ranking, we will do another round of the 2020, but it won't be till after the summer. Also, people asking about the 12U ranking. We're going to look to do those in June. So stay tuned for those. We want to see what these 12U teams are going to start out like, so we can get a better idea of where they stack up in the Fab 50. And even just so you know, for people who are maybe didn't make the deadline for 2021s, we do an update every year. So even to the players out there, even if you make the Hot 100 this time around, it doesn't guarantee you a spot for next year's ranking. So make sure that you stay on your game, because we will be keeping tabs throughout the year. Brent, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we'll probably update it 4 or 5 times before these players head into college. And I think you said it perfectly. If you're on the list, you better keep working hard, because there's girls not on the list that are ticked off. They didn't make it, and they're coming after you. And they're, like I said, Ches, the second 100, any of those girls could make the top 100 within a year. It's that deep of a class. And that's the hardest part about doing the top 100 is you can only get so many in. I remember looking at like the 2020s and seeing these players now that are like 150 to 200 range. I'm going, wow, missed the boat. They should be higher. And it's because some peak later, some play for teams that we didn't see as much. We have a girl that will be in the top 50 that plays for a club team that no one knows about. But this girl, several coaches has said, if she was on a higher profile team, she would be one of the top players in the country. And that's what's exciting to me is when we find these sleepers and these players that. Now, one girl we wrote about, I don't know if we published it yet. It either went out yesterday or it's going to go out today. In the last year, she grew 3 inches and gained 30 pounds of muscle. And she's become one of the top.
We'll have to fact check that one.
Well, I'm not doing a body fat analysis. I'm just taking the coach's word for it. But the point is 3 inches, 30 pounds. Some players just explode physically, and some they just shoot up and become dominant that you just can't ignore them. So that's what's fun about this list. And I tell coaches or players, parents, this isn't the ending. This is just the beginning. We're planting the flag in the sand, and we're saying, here's the top 100 as we see it now, but it's way subject to change, and it's all dependent on how hard the kids work.
Yeah, and Brent, you bring up an excellent point. Everybody's going to peak at different times. I mean, Maggie Ballant is a great example of somebody who just took off in the last year of her high school career, and then she's just continuing to get better. And I mean, I'm very excited to see her career with the Ducks. So next week we have our final 50 for the Hot 100. What can people expect, Brent?
You will see a lot more committed players. You're going to see players going, and I'm not going to say names of teams, but you're going to see Pac-12, Big Ten, SEC. There are some players out there that, talking to their coaches, club coaches or college scouts, they're saying, you know what, these are franchise players, and these are 8th graders. And that's one thing that's interesting about, you're mentioning about peaking. You can't do this in boys sports because guys, let's say football, they typically don't really hit their stride till their junior, senior years. But we're seeing some of these girls, we're writing about 13-year-old 5'10", 5'11" pitchers. So we're going to see in the second half, you're going to see some players going to big-name schools that have hit their stride. And these are going to be names you're going to be hearing for the next 4 or 5 years being dominant players. Because you look back, and Maggie Ballant was one that we didn't know about. But there were ones like Kelly Barnhill, Rachel Garcia. Those are players that you know about, you hear early. And, now in the 2020 class and 2019s, these are girls that are the next generations of future stars. So we're just getting on the cusp of these 2021s of learning who they are. But these top ones are very, very strong. Great class. And I'm excited that when we unveil the next 50, you're going to be reading about players that I think will be major college stars. And, some of these I would venture to guess, be bold enough to say there's a half dozen or so that will be on the Olympic team down the road.
Wow. Bold words from Brent Eads. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You can catch us live on FloSoftball and Facebook next Thursday. Had to switch around the schedule a bit. Brittany, you got anything for us?
I just had one question come in. Right. First of all, Teresa McVeigh said it's a great honor to be on the list. I'm going to assume she is of relation to Ella McVeigh, who is number 67, I believe, on our 2021 Hot 100 rankings. And she followed that up with a question. She's seeing a lot of these girls playing up in age group. Is there a benefit to that, and would you recommend that?
I'll take that one, Brent. Okay. I think, I've talked with a number of parents and players. Each player is a case-by-case basis. So as a parent, you need to do what's best for your daughter as far as paying attention to how they're being challenged at practice and in games. And sometimes that will result in, a player playing up in age group. But there's benefits in playing in your own age group, that you stay with a core group of players and you win championships with them. Obviously, there's Brent, you mentioned an 8th grader going up and playing with seniors and juniors. So that's a different class of athletes that you're playing with. So it certainly has its benefits, but I would say you really have to look at your daughter and weigh out the pros and cons on them moving up as opposed to staying in their actual age group.
Chaz, excellent answer. I would have said the same thing. And there's one other point I want to elaborate on. It's great to play against better competition, higher competition. It makes you better. But I've seen this in other sports too, where you've got to be careful of the social side. And you mentioned staying with a core group of players that you develop friendships and relationships with. I've seen girls go up even in year 2, 3, and they're with girls that are a different level of maturity, different interests, different life experiences, and the young girls can feel out of place. And when you're traveling and going on these week-long tournaments and such, you can feel isolated. I've seen some players just kind of feel like a fish out of water because they're with girls that are older. Almost they're like their older sisters and they're not their peers. And they miss the socialization. So I would say just factor that in, just like you said, perfectly. It's a case-by-case basis. You just have to see what the mentality, maturity, emotional level of your athlete is, because it's a long summer. And if you're playing with girls that you don't click with and you feel by yourself and alone, that can be tough.
Yeah, great point, Brent. We got any other questions?
Just one more coming in. Carl Parkerson wants to know the importance of high school ball, and he says he hears that high school ball is irrelevant in the Midwest. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Brent, you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Yeah, go first, because I want to think of politically correct.
So I would say it is important, because say you're committed and your numbers slack. Well, coaches are going to pay attention to that. And what benefit is that to slack off in high school anyway? Even if the talent level isn't it's not comparable to club, that's no excuse to lower your level of play and performance. So I think it is important, because obviously you spend a great deal of time in high school, so you better just make the most of it. As far as from a recruiting standpoint, it's really tough because college softball is happening at the same time as high school softball. So you're not going to see a ton of college coaches out recruiting. But, from my experience, when I did have the opportunity to go out to some of these tournaments, I would go watch high school softball because it didn't count against me and my recruiting days. So take those parts in consideration. But for the most part, if you're thinking about recruiting, club is going to weigh a little bit more, if it's just going to weigh more than high school?
Yeah, Chaz, again, another great answer. I would say it's how you approach high school ball. And all of it depends on where you're at and what level you're at. I mean, if you're in Southern California and you're playing in the CIF championships, you're going to have high visibility. But I think the main benefit for high school is we're talking about young girls, teenagers. And a lot of times these are their best friends. And if you're looking at it to advance your recruiting, high school ball is not the best option. Club is, obviously. But high school ball can be competitive and it can be fun. And these are with your classmates, your friends, and it should be something that you have an enjoyable experience. This should be fun time. It's almost like club is work. You know, club is working on bettering your game and your skills and your recruiting situation. Where high school it's like, let's just go out and enjoy this time of our lives. The thing I have seen, and you be careful, is sometimes girls are really good. You mentioned this, the level competition is different. And sometimes girls get off their game and start trying to do too much, or they pick up bad habits, either pitching or hitting. They try to do too much or get out of their game or what they should be doing. So you've got to just stay focused and just keep doing what's effective and enjoy the journey. That's the key thing. And I think high school ball, most importantly, it's your high school time of life. You only go through it once.
Great point, Brent. We got anything else, Brittany?
I just want to give another shout out to Annie. She's back on the comments.
Annie's back.
And she wants you to do cornrows next week.
No, here's the deal, Annie. It's all about Oregon making it to OKC. So they make it to OKC. I'm going to get braided up,
She's ready. Ready.
I'm ready too. So just make it there. And then we have a deal.
Me too, Chaz.
Oh, you're going to get cornrows too?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Come on, Brent.
No.
You'd pull it off.
Oh, my gosh. I would pay a ton of money to see that.
If you'll pay me a ton of money, I'll do it. I'm not going to do it because of the College World Series.
Oh, too bad. But, yeah.
Yeah, now Kelvin's chiming in and said they will win, and so you better get that head ready, Ches.
Okay, I'm ready. Like I said, I'm not backing down from this bet, y'all. Like, they make it. I'm getting braided up.
Did y'all hear that, y'all? I don't think she's from Texas. I'm from California. Yeah, she's a Texan now, folks.
I've lived here long enough. What is this?
I think you're going to have a 10-gallon hat on, you traitor.
Look, it's been like almost 8 years. I think a little over 8 years since I've been living here. And plus I'm around a couple people who have very thick accents. I think it's rubbed off on me a bit.
It's bound to.
Yeah. It's not too bad.
Well, we'll
are you judging me, Brent? I feel like you're judging me.
Am I judging you? No, we'll still call you a Californian since your family's here.
I'm a transplant.
You're a transplant. Mm-hmm. Listen, our company's in Austin. We have to be Texans.
Brent, it's your turn to move here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure that'll happen.
Yeah,
he's like right down the street from PGF.
Yep. I'm 2 miles from the beach.
Ooh, yeah, there you go. All right. Well, Brent, thanks so much for joining us again. And for those of you who joined us on the live show, and we'll be back next Thursday. So, hop on FloSoftball or Facebook, submit more questions. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.